Well, good afternoon. My name is Mike Brennan, and I am the co-founder and CEO of a wonderful organization called Stribe. Welcome to Stribe Sessions and the third in our series, How to Build Company Culture from Hiring to Growing Teams and Everything in Between. That rhymes, and what a topic. We've had over 100 leaders of people register for today's event, so it's clearly a very relevant topic of discussion for many. And I have to admit, I'm rather nervous today because I feel a little out of my depth speaking to two absolute leaders in the field. So I'm joined today by the wonderful Gemma Ellison, Director of Engagement and Culture at Jackson Lees and one of Stribe's advocate customers. Welcome, Gemma. And the intriguing Dan Sodergren, co-founder of Your Flock. And Dan, I believe Mikhail, your co-founder, is currently in the process of organically hiring Flock's team as he's expecting his first baby as we speak. Is that true?
Yeah, that is absolutely right. Yeah, it's all happening at once. So yeah, it's a great time to be growing the team as well. So both with organic growth and also baby growth. So fair play.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to come back to you both in just a second, but I want to first of all thank you, our audience, for signing up today and for attending today's webinar. We're aiming for this to be an informal discussion between myself, Gemma, and Dan, and we hope to give you a chance to hear advice, guidance and ideas with regards to culture during the next 45 minutes. I really want this webinar to be solution focused, sharing experiences and projects and really discussing the benefits of investing time and resource in solutions during a very busy and challenging time for all businesses. I particularly want the audience to think about some key buzzwords as we go through the webinar today, such as employee voice, pulse surveys, employee feedback, employee well-being, and psychological safety, which I know, Gemma, you're a huge advocate of in the workplace. So to our audience today, it's all about you. We want you to ask as many questions as possible using the Q&A box just on the bottom. If you click on that Q&A box, it will open up a panel and you can ask as many questions as you want to. In the second half of the webinar, I'll be asking all of your questions to Gemma and Dan. So if you could get them going as you think about, as you listen to their conversational points, that will help us to then direct the conversation back to what it's important to you. I hope to have you all wrapped up by 10 to 1 if my timekeeping is correct, to allow you to grab a coffee and a quick pee before your next phone call, Zoom meeting, or if you're lucky enough, letting you go back to speak to an actual human face-to-face, which is something I am absolutely missing at the minute, but we are in lockdown 2.0 and it is what it is. So without further ado, let's do this. How to build company culture. Wow, where do we begin? Well, let's start with what is culture. If you were to Google what is culture, sometimes very dangerous to do so, but you'll find the dictionary search defines this as point 1, the art and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarding collectivity, and 2, the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. But ask 5 people to define company culture, and I bet you'll get 5 completely different answers. So to me, company culture is the personality of an organization. It's the way people feel about the work they do, the values they believe in, where they see the company going, and what they're doing to get it there. Whatever your definition of company culture is, I'm sure we can all agree that strong culture is what will get organizations through the storm that is 2020. For me, as a young CEO, learning my trade and making every single mistake you possibly can, and having hired over 40 people to date, I can assure you that having a positive culture equals a successful, happy, and growing business. To me, you can truly feel good culture when it's together, and you can truly feel it when it's not. Culture is the outcome of all things within your business working together. When your people believe in your organization's mission and are all aligned to support one another, you achieve great things. Now, of course, that sounds great, and it is much easier said than done. Before we get going, can I remind our lovely audience to put all of your questions, Q&A, into the box that says Q&A at the bottom, and in the second half of the webinar, we'll be putting these questions to Gemma and Dan. There's a really clever upvote button, which we absolutely love. Sometimes we get overwhelmed with a number of questions, so I start at the top and I work my way down. So if there is a question that you all do want answered and it's relevant and we're getting towards 10 to 1, please upvote it as we go, and I will do my best to answer those questions for you. Right, enough about my views on company culture. I want to officially welcome both Gemma and Dan to the stage this morning. How are you both? Gemma, to you first. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Still working at home, so like you mentioned, Mike, still missing that human interaction that I think is a big part of culture, actually. But yeah, I'm all good. Thank you.
Brilliant. And Dan, how are you? Before we get into the questions and the detail, how are you as a person?
That's a deep question. Unfortunately, my partner got coronavirus, so we're on a kind of a stricter lockdown. So I'm also homeschooling and on a self-isolation for the next another 10 days. So that's also why my voice might be going a bit as well, because who knows, I may well also have it. I had a negative test 2 days ago, but it could all change. So what I'm trying to get to is if my daughter runs in because something's happened, or because she needs me to put more roadblocks on, or the internet's gone down, whatever, something could happen. So yeah, just to warn everyone on the call, I'm juggling. That's all.
No, we're all human. Thank you for that honesty, and absolutely, if you need to, you need to. That's the main thing. Family first.
I'm bringing my whole self to work on this in a true transparent nature. There you go.
Brilliant.
Good for culture.
There we are. Absolutely. So, ladies first, Gemma. First question to you. May you introduce yourself and your role, and perhaps give us a look in your rearview mirror, describing what you've observed over the last 6 months in terms of culture within your organisation.
Yeah, so my name's Gemma Ellison, and I am a director and head of culture and engagement at Jackson Lees, which is a law firm. I've got a really strange role in a law firm. I don't think there are many of us in the legal sector as head of culture and engagement, and it was a role that I sort of created myself. So that's why there's not many of us. I am a retired family lawyer, and I know you're probably thinking you only look like you're 11 years old. I'm 12 years old, but yeah, I'm on my second career now. So I was in the family lawyer for 8 years. I moved into the culture and engagement space, which I love. So looking in the rearview mirror, what I have observed in the last 6 months is the absolute strength of our culture at Jackson Lees, and the power that has given us to come through this really difficult time. So we've taken real care in developing our culture, and it was something that we had 2 law firms come together. It was Jackson Cantor and Lees, so we had to combine 2 very, very, very different cultures, and that's taken a lot of work. So culture isn't something, well, culture will exist whether it's good or bad, but it's something that needs constant attention, in my opinion. It needs constant work. It can't be, we've got it right, brilliant, let's move on to the next thing. It's something that needs constant attention, and we've given it that attention over the past sort of few years. We have one value, which is making a positive difference, and that sort of summarises, I think, our culture and who we are as a business. And that sense of family, that sense of togetherness, that sense of vulnerability. And we have collective vulnerability in our business. We talk about it a lot about psychological safety. And so what I've observed in the last sort of 6 months is how much, actually, if there was ever going to be a test of the work that we've done in terms of culture, I would never have wished for it to be a global pandemic, but it's been a test nonetheless, and we've actually showed that the work that we've done, that the consistent and relentless work we've done in our culture has actually proved that we've been able to keep a successful business, but also look after our people during that time. So I think COVID's been a test of our culture, but it's a test that I think it showed that the work we've been doing has been the right work.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And there's lots of very emotive and powerful words in there, Gemma, in terms of strength, power, trust, support, all of these kind of key values that are coming through. Thank you for sharing that. And I know, kind of working together, you are truly passionate and a believer in culture. Can we just go back a step? I'd be interested, when I mentioned, if you ask 5 different people, what does culture mean to you? Obviously, you've gone from a retired family lawyer to creating a role in a very fast growing and exciting law firm. What does culture mean to you? What is it?
This is something that we talk about a lot, and it's something that we've asked our people about a lot. When we've been doing lots of pulse surveys with your support, and we've asked people, what is culture? What does it mean? And they've answered this pretty similar, actually. For me, it's a feeling. It's how we do things around here. It's that mutual and common sort of feeling, and that it's really hard for me to describe. It feels like a buzz to me. That's what our culture feels like to me. But it's that way of, this is how we do things around here, and it's also an expectation. When I join this business, this is what I expect, and this is what I'll sort of feel. So for me, culture is very much a feeling, a common feeling, and a togetherness of this is how we do things here.
No, that's really clear and something I'm aligned with. And Dan, if I may sort of transition across to you, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and your role within your flock, and the last 6 months of the world that you've been in, and off the back of that, what does culture mean to you once you've driven that forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to get to the that huge question. So to be fair, I was just busy writing stuff down when Gemma was talking. It's brilliant, and also investigating her own company as well, and looking at the website and seeing if it. Right. So my background's a marketing guy. I'm a marketing guy. According to my blog, I'm a serial entrepreneur, which basically just means I found 10 different ways of not making £1 million. So as my mom always says, if you're so clever, why aren't you on a beach? She has a good point. So there you go. So I've kind of had a few tech companies, had a few growing teams. I had a marketing agency before, which we grew, did pretty well. We won a few awards and all that stuff. And some people may have seen me. I've done some stuff on the BBC quite a bit on that, because I do talk about digital marketing, and I'm a tech expert on podcasts and other things. My biggest interest has been for the last couple of years has been the future of work. Not only tech and tech for good, which I'm a massive advocate for, but also the future of work and how do we change the world. So I had the joy. I'm a massive hippie, so I had the joy of I had a green company years ago, and an eco company, and all these different companies. So anyway, I bumped into Mikkel about 3 years ago, and I tried to build something like your flock about 8 years ago. I had the joy of being what some people call the futurist. So it just means you just do stuff before other people do. Doesn't mean it's always a good idea. For example, I had an augmented reality company 10 years ago. Far too early in the hype cycle to have one. Anyway, it's a bit techy and a bit geeky, but I know you like that, Michael. So it's far too early. So I had the joy of doing stuff, and people kind of asked me to tell them about things, and I do a lot of talks about digital transformation. I suppose that's the biggest thing in the last 6 months, is a lot of the stuff I've been talking about for 5 years, for a reason outside of humankind, has all come to fruition. We've literally had 9 years of advancement in digital transformation in the last 9 months. It's literally a revolution that's happened. And because, as Gemma rightly saying, it's not something that we wanted to happen, but COVID has been this trigger point for a massive, massive social change. And so people, as everyone knows on the call, you're on a Zoom call, for goodness sake. 5 years ago, I was telling people, please, let's do more webinars. I was doing webinars and everyone thought I was mad. Now we do 3 a day, or 4 a day, or 5 a day. Yeah? So this revolution's happened from a technological point of view because of an outside factor. And that's what I got excited about with Flock. I could see with your Flock that because we were going to be working inside helping company cultures with technology, that was a good spot to be in. However, I didn't predict, of course, no one predicted what would happen with COVID, or even COVID itself. It's a black swan moment. Yeah. So we were sitting there in a river of understanding, which then became 5 times bigger. Remote work was something that about 5% of people did. Then all of a sudden it was 50%. So the huge change for me personally, not for me personally, actually, because I've been doing remote work for about 10 years. I just didn't realize it was called remote work. It's called being a tech entrepreneur and being a consultant. You don't always have offices until you need them. And you're just very flight of foot. And I also do digital training. So it's always been online. But yeah, the big change for us in the 6 months has obviously been this massive change in the market and the market's understanding. Yeah. So we were having to educate people around the idea of A, remote work, but B, the importance of company culture. Because for a long, long time, people thought, well, we've got beanbags. We've got beanbags. We go out for a beer at 4:30. We do, a coffee morning. We've got a great culture. And that's honestly what they believe. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. If you're on the call and that's what you still believe, I'm here to tell you that is not culture. Okay, it's a really dangerous thing what people do. They look at the top bit, the bit of the iceberg, the bit that pops out the water, and say, that's our company culture. It is not. The company culture is much, much deeper. I think Gemma said it brilliantly when it was around values, and the way things are done. Your behaviours are underneath this. Yeah, your football table that no one ever uses is the thing at the top. The table tennis, ping pong bats doesn't make you a cool company. It's just because other cool companies had those, so you bought one. It's the classic. As we know in tech, there's so many cliches around what people think company culture is. So I'll come to the crux of it. I think culture is an amorphous term most of the time. That's why it's very complicated to kind of tie it down. But it's to do with your values, your underlying values that you hold together, create a series of behaviours, which create a series of actions and behaviours, which becomes your company culture. Yeah, it's also something, as Gemma rightly said, I always call it the smelly friend test. It always exists, your company culture, whether it's good or it's bad. So if you're on the call and you go, no, our company culture is great, but you've never investigated that, it's a bit like the smelly friends test, yeah, which is this: if you don't know who your smelly friend is, you are the smelly friend in the group. You're the person who smells because you don't know the person who smells in the group. Now, I just think that's hilarious. No one else in the world thinks that's funny. I just think it's really fun. Anyway, that's probably because I'm the smelly friend. It just makes me laugh. Anyway, the point being is we work with a lot of companies, and I love that Gemma was talking about law firms. We work with lots of law firms, and their first reaction is, we have a great culture. And then we say, cool, okay, what's your employee churn rate? And they tell us, and I'm not going to tell the percentages, but it's usually very high. Yeah, and partners leave and people leave. And they just go, well, that's just life. That's just the world. And it isn't. That's just a bad culture. People leaving and not being productive and not being engaged, that's a bad culture. Yeah. So Mikkel tells me off when I say things like bad culture. But I think there is. If you are not productive and engaged in work, then you're most probably part of a toxic and bad culture. And you'll notice this, especially, by the way, when people start remote working. And let's not call this remote work as well. I get very cross by this, just like my own situation at the moment. We're working through home through a pandemic, yeah, with lots of external pressures and stresses on us. No one's going to be the very best they can be right now, I don't think. But you should be able to tell, as a boss of a business, or as the HR person, or as the people person, you should know whether people are being truly productive and engaged. And that should be your hallmark for whether you've got a cohesive and good culture.
Thank you, Dan. I think that's very clear and helps me transition quite nicely to my next thought and questions we move through, which is going to be a bit like ping pong between you two. I think it'll be quite exciting. But Gemma, how do you do that? How do you begin to understand your culture, and how do you begin to map that out? You start on this journey of creating your own role. How did you break down those values and get that feeling to what it is today?
Well, I think I completely agree with everything that Dan's just said. When people will think they have a good culture, but that's purely what they think. But when you dig deep down and you go ask your people what they think it is, then that's where you start seeing a few cracks. So I think, the thing that we started doing was just listening, asking questions, and that's what we will do constantly. And we're really proud to partner with you guys at Stribe, because the tool, just to ask them questions, to pulse the questions out, listen, ask more questions. That's how you'll find out what your culture is, by asking your people. So, quite often you'll find, oh, this person thinks the business is brilliant. Then you'll see an exit questionnaire and you're like, oh, didn't really understand that, didn't know that was going on. Well, actually, before you get to there, if you are constantly talking to your people and keeping them informed as well, it goes two ways. So talking and listening, then that's how you'll find out what your culture is. And again, there is such thing as a bad culture. There absolutely is. Every business has got a culture. Some people will say to me, well, we haven't really got a culture. You have. Everyone's got a culture. Everybody has. It's not just something that you think, oh, I know, on a Friday I'm going to go and get one. It exists always, and whether you like it or you don't, whether it's a positive or negative one, there is one. So I think the first step in finding out, actually, I'm a big fan of a team of leaders and everyone being involved, in this idea of relentless inclusivity and everyone having a voice and everyone knowing from one end of the organisation to the next, what do you do, what's the role that you play, and that you have to feel a part in the success of the organisation. And that goes from literally from people who just start as our apprentices to the CEO. Everyone needs to know what role they play and play a part, and that's what makes, for me, the culture, and that everyone, it's that relentlessly inclusive approach. But again, I think the starting point always, and it's not just a starting point and then it ends, it's always got to be listening and talking for me, and finding out, well, actually, this is what I think our culture is. What do our people think? They're the main people. They're the people that are driving your organisation, not just the leaders, it's your people. They're the ones that are powering it all. So I think it's really important to have those conversations. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying rapidly to disagree with you because it makes better telly. But no, we're not, it's not I'm a celebrity, so we don't have to make it better telly. Did you see it last night, though? Wasn't it fascinating? It's one of the things. So there you go. That's part of company, it's part of culture, isn't it? Reference points and these little moments. But what you were saying is absolutely right. There are bad cultures, and one of the worst cultures is when you are not listening to your employees. Yeah, when you don't even ask the question. I think you mentioned there the exit poll or the exit questions, and then when you find things out, well, obviously that's far too late. It's already cost you an absolute fortune to get, to hire these people costs lots of money, and then to lose them costs loads of money. And this is the bit that we've used Your Flock. Your Flock is a way of asking that very question. You ask it around a series of surveys that we do, and then we ascertain the 3 core values, and that helps you kind of culture map for your company. So I'd love your organisation to use it. It'd be fascinating. Quite fascinating. We could give you a percentage of exactly how cohesive the whole culture is. It'd be fascinating to do. But anyway, that's a good point. One of the things that's really big, though, from a cultural point of view, is that about 34% of people leave a business because of culture misalignment. Yeah, so that's like 1/3 of your people will leave because they don't like the culture that you've created. Now, that can be a great cohesive culture, and they're just not the right values fit. And that's fine, because people are different. I'm very, very autonomous. Just because I am, and I have been for 20 years, it's not likely I'm going to change too much. It's one of my 3 core values. And Flock as a business has those 3 core values. By the way, I had to do the Flock survey before I invested in Flock. We're so much into what we do. We drink our own champagne. So, our investors have to do, because we know that if we're going to be working with investors and employing people and having them as suppliers, etc., we all have to share the same values or similar values. And that's really, really important. So, as I think my sound went off. Did my sign go off, or did it?
No, we can still hear you. We're okay.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, cool. So so that for us, it's really that important. The culture is absolutely key. The other thing to think about when you think around culture, it's this: if you're not in the culture or not enjoying your work, but it's a bit deeper. But if you're not enjoying your work, you're not productive. You're not as productive. Yeah. So there's a great stat I've just been looking for. Here we go. So it's around, the UK economy loses about £24 billion a year because people are not engaged at work. Yeah, so 24 billion. Now, I think during the COVID time, track and trace has cost us 12 billion, and I won't get into the details of how ridiculous that is. But the point is double the amount that we're paying to combat COVID is lost every year because people aren't engaged at work. Now I'm a bit of a hippie, as I said before, so I love the idea that people are self-fulfilling, have self-fulfillment at work. That they're self-actualizing, as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's what I'm a great believer in. You should be using work as a tool to self-actualize. However, as a business owner as well, I know that if the very best people, if I can get the very best people and get them to do the very best work, I will make the most amount of profit. Which I know sounds a little bit harsh, but literally, your people run your company. They are the people that run your company. They are, without your people, there is no company. Let's be honest about it. Yeah, they're not just human capital. It's just I get so offended when people talk about human stock and human capital. It's like, get rid of those people and you don't have a company, mate. So let's get off our boss pedestal. Let's realize we should all be servant leaders. In reality, your people, and the way that you should be asking them questions all the time, because they drive the boat. They drive the productivity for you to report to others. So, that's what Flock's all about, by the way. The idea that user end up, you can ask all your people these questions, and then you get the data to then start making some really quite nuanced decisions around what you should do as a team and what you should do as a company. So I'm a great believer in using tech to do it. And then my last one I think it's from Gallup. Well, you'll know it yourself, and people like Apple and these great companies that Apple are worth now. I think isn't it like they're worth more than 99 of the other companies in the FTSE 100. It's insane how much more money they're worth. It's just nuts. Yeah. One of the reasons being is because of their culture, because of their company culture, and because people love working there. And so profitable companies have happy people. And that's what we need more and more in this world, by the way. We're going to need people to be happier at work. And the future of work will have to be around values and happiness, because we're all going to need to be making or being more productive and being happier. And that's the reason why I think happy cultures make more money is the other way of looking at it. And I think that's important for us all.
No, it's brilliant to listen to you both bouncing backwards and forwards, because you'll have different ways of managing people and thinking, but ultimately this core culture is absolutely key to focus on. Is true for both of you. If people are sitting there saying, I want to increase profitability or productivity or everything around it, this is what can define, underpin and drive that forward if you really make this part of your day to day. I personally have had a really interesting learning experience with COVID. So I came from university after working in a bank. It was very much 9 till 5 structured day, and that's what you were doing. And then along came this wonderful organization of Stribe, which helped me to support businesses to understand their people's needs and culture and everything. And I then had to take a hard look at myself, and it made me realize, whilst I was talking the talk on the outside, was I walking the walk on the inside? And absolutely I wasn't. And it took COVID for me to realize that you don't have to have specific 9 till 5 set hours to have productivity. You don't have to have 30-minute breaks, and even just giving an extra hour to go to the dentist isn't really a perk. It comes down to me for trust. I now trust my team completely with what they're doing. Our developers will be working through the night when I'm asleep, and when I'm up early in the morning, my head of marketing and team will be up a lot earlier than what I ever realized, just because there's not a light or a function or something on. And that only comes from trust and making sure that your outcomes are aligned and really clear. And I think that's really, really important. So, Gemma, first of all, to yourself, and then Dan, back to you. How are you going to measure the success of ongoing culture? So you talked about, Gemma, culture isn't just like, great, we've hit 8% engagement in a Stribe pulse survey. It's about continually listening. But how do you know whether that's going to be good at those steps, or whether bad culture is slipping in?
Well, I think that there's lots of different ways, really. But again, so back to the surveys that we use, we ask lots of questions in different ways. So we'll use surveys because I think we've moved from a situation where people felt, when we initially did surveys, people were like, I can't say how I really feel because I'm scared of what will happen. I'm really happy to say that in the sort of 2.5 years that we've been doing that, that's much less of an issue. And we have people now put on their names to anonymous surveys and saying, actually, this is what I want to talk to you about, and this is what I want to say. We're held accountable, I guess, as a leadership team by our people. We've got lots of various committees. We have associates who are they're a massive part of our culture, and they will tell us, they will ask questions, they will tell us, and they will drive things forward. So it doesn't necessarily need to come from us. We will obviously support it, but it's them that drive it, and that's brilliant. And we can just facilitate an environment where engagement and culture stands up in the centre. I think, again, it's difficult to measure because it's never done. It's never something that's complete. It's something that will always be ongoing, and it's something that we will always want to get better at. You know, I'm obsessed with sort of thinking about, I've not ever been I've always been in the law. But it's things I listen to and read around tech. So Dan, I'm really interested in listening to you, because there seems to be much more advancement in those spaces in terms of culture and how you measure it and how you get it right. But it's all about learning constantly, and it will never be finished. It will never be done. We do lots of things to make sure we're doing the right thing. So we recruit for culture. I know that we're going to have a chat about recruitment in a little while, but we will recruit for culture. And we don't have, I think it's at Netflix, it was called Brilliant Jerk or something, and we call it something slightly different. But if someone's absolutely fantastic, but they're not culturally aligned, they're not a fit for our business, we don't employ them. And that's how important culture is to us. And if we do find people within our business who are, for example, the highest billers, but they're absolutely toxic to our culture, then we need to deal with that. So I guess, again, talking, listening, we have I said before, we have very vulnerable leadership. So our COO, Joanna Kingston Davis, is the most vulnerable leader I've ever met. I respect her massively, and she will happily go on our internal workplace Facebook page and say, I'm having a really shit day today. I'm having a really bad day. This is how I feel. And what that does is give people opportunity to say, do you know what, I do too. And that's how. So we've got loads of different ways that we keep a check on it, but we also make sure that our people keep a check on us. And again, that's where our heads of committees who are not in the leadership team, we don't really have a hierarchy. So we'll have lots of different people from across the organisation, from lots of different roles, telling us what we need to do as well. And we've worked really hard to get that open communication where people feel able to say, I'm not happy with this. This is how this is going. So I think we've established a really good relationship with our people and the leadership team. And that's something that was one of the first things I worked on. Because on our first survey, I think it was 40% of people that believed in the leadership of the business. We're knocking on to 85 now, which is great, in 2 years. So, you know, all of those different ways. But again, it goes back to, and I'll keep saying it goes back to listening and communication. And that's how we'll measure it, how people feel. And, you know, of course, as Dan was mentioning, we look at things like turnover, attrition. One of the things for us as well, though, is sort of positive attrition, because one of the things that we want, our core value, is making a positive difference. Mm-hmm. And I think gone are the days where you'll go to a business and you'll be there forever. If someone wants to come to us and think, you know what, I want to have a really brilliant 2 years here on this particular project and I'm going to go elsewhere, that's great. And if we can support you in doing that, then we've made a positive difference to you and you've positively influenced our culture, and then we'll wish you really well. So there's a couple of different ways that we will look at attrition. But you know, if our people are moving on to get to better things, it's a compliment to us that we've been able to help them achieve that. But yeah, I go around the houses. Sorry, Mike, in terms of my answers.
No, it's really good, and I think, you know, there's some exciting questions coming up. So we're gonna jump on some of these questions soon. So I want to make sure that the audience gets them answered. But listening, like you say, that it's clear that one size does not fit all, and you need to have multiple things in place. You know, you need to be able to listen from a face-to-face conversational point of view when you can. You need technology like Stribe to be able to frequently measure those insights, and you need leadership engagement to encourage you and allow you to get on with that part, and then measure on the larger metrics of financial churn and driving forwards. Dan, I'm going to flip this question slightly because I think this might relate to.
I just prepped a whole brilliant bit.
I'm going to keep you on your feet. Absolutely. It related back to what Gemma was saying about, you know, removing and attracting talent and removing toxic culture depending on what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to rely on our millennial workforce, and I do find at the minute there's a huge divide between those that expect a job and what are you going to give me in terms of a football table, and the other side of that are those who are going above and beyond to get to that point. My question is, on both sides of the, what should organizations be doing to attract the right type of culture, and what should youngsters and millennials and people looking to get aligned with having a vocation rather than a job, what should they be doing so that we meet in the middle?
Well, I think the second part of that, I don't think you could answer, but it's such a philosophically deep question that I'd be worried to do so. But I'd go into realms of spirituality and what's the point of life and why are we all here? And I'm very happy to do it. It's just we only got 20 minutes.
So in a minute, go.
Yeah, I can say, yeah. Well, so Dan, who's the true God? Discuss. Oh, thanks. The religion is good. We all point to the same God. We're all angels and we're all stardust. And the point being is that, yeah, when you start looking at the future of work, which is going to be, it always makes me smile that people still say millennial, because it's, you know, 50% of the workforce, and actually it's just ridiculous. But it's only old people like me that would even think about going. Anyway, millennial is an interesting point. The entitlement thing, there's lots of weird stuff that goes around with them, lots of baggage that goes around with it. Most of it is actually not data driven at all. It's not substantiated. If you use something like your flock to ascertain the individual's values, you'll start realizing that actually the kind of age and gender bits that we put in just simply aren't the case. Yeah, they are the extra bit that goes on top. Yeah, so you can have certain values at any age, and they're likely to stick relatively similar. Yeah, unlike things like, you know, ENTP, I'm an ENTP, and was it Myers-Briggs and things, they can change, and they can change quite a bit. And the insights things can change as you get older, and other things that you could use these psychometric tests. However, your values underneath it don't tend to move from the age of about 14 onwards. Doesn't mean they can't, just means that they don't. So most of your workforce population will actually, you'll need to start looking at values. It's just the fact you haven't before. So I always, I'm going to contradict Gemma a little bit, but I think it's just semantically. I always worry when people talk about culture fit, because what culture fit then can create is groupthink, and it can create, oh, they're not like us. And that's actually not what you want. You don't actually want everyone to be the same culture, because that's what tech does. And that's why we have the issues we have around diversity and inclusion in tech. But that doesn't mean we have it in law firms. But if you start recruiting them, most people do it on a hunch, don't they? But a lot of people recruit people and they go, oh, I like them, I think we can go for a beer with them. That's the worst way to recruit anyone. Yeah? It's just awful. Believe me, I know, because that's what I used to do. Yeah, and that's why we did great teams. And I was going to, and then I used Flock personally. And literally the Flock thing came up with a siren saying, don't hire this guy. This guy was one of my personal friends, still is. I'd known him for about 10 years. I thought I knew him. And he did the Flock test. It said, don't hire him. I didn't hire him. About 3 months later, he came to me and said, yeah, Dan, it would have been awful. I was just looking for a job. I was just on the blag, really. And but that's the case. I didn't know him well enough. I didn't know his values deeply enough, but he was a really good friend of mine. So I was amazed how clever the system is. So you've got to start looking at utilizing technology, because as a human being, you have your own confirmation bias. You have your own problems. So when people start talking about culture fit and would we get on with it, that is actually an issue, because actually that can create a problem, especially in technology, but it creates a problem. I'm not only a great believer in diversity and inclusion, we're a Manchester Publicity Association to do so. And we've got to widen, especially in technology, including in law, by the way, we work in law firms as well. We've got to widen this whole thing. So it can't be about culture fit, it has to be about values fit. Because if you talk about culture fit, you can have a problem with diversity and inclusion. You really can, it creates this issue. However, and I've got to be really careful with words, when you're looking around hiring people that are younger than ourselves, I think there can be a need that we are not providing as an older generation, especially with remote work. This is really crucial with remote work. When remote working, people who have only just starting their careers will need more managerial help. They'll need more support. They will need more than even you would like to give them most of the time, or you feel you have time to. And this is one of the reasons, by the way, that Your Flock exists, is because we realise that from apprentice level and a little bit higher, people just don't have the time to support people this way. So Your Flock gives people activities they can do around their core values and then report back to their manager if they've done them. So it's a little bit like, I know, it's a little bit like, not Peloton, it's a little bit like, it tells you what sit-ups to do or press-ups to do to get fit. Yeah, because we can't scale the hand-to-hand help that a lot of people are now needing. Because I'll give you a little percentage, 20% of people are finding remote work tremendously lonely and is affecting their productivity. That increases almost exponentially the younger you get. Yeah, so if you're about 45, say, people apparently aren't that bad about it. I don't really feel it that much, but I've been doing it for a long time. However, if you've just started your career, you need more help. And your culture must provide more help, must provide more access to like mentoring and other things you can start doing. And I'll stop the rant there, but it's a really big one with young people because they are going to be highly affected by this coronavirus 9 months. And we've really got to kind of put our arm around them. And if we can't do it face to face, we've got to do it digitally. Not only have you got to be asking the questions of them continually, you've got to be giving them feedback and giving them things to do, because we're going to lose a whole generation of workforce, I think, unless we're careful.
Thank you, Dan. Really, really clear.
That was a rant, wasn't it? That really was a rant. Sorry.
Again, it's hopefully this is giving practical conversations to what's important, and the themes that are coming through is back to culture is key, and how you break that down, understanding what culture is and how that can be embedded within your organization. We're about to go into some questions around hiring, transforming culture from an old culture to a new culture and what that means, and we're going to go through these questions and the importance of technology. And just for the audience, that of course we are here to talk about two solutions, and Gemma's leading the way in actually putting these to practical use in terms of Stribe enabling you to kind of ask and listen and get more regular feedback, and then understanding how you can do with that. And then also you've got the Your Flock element, looking at how you can identify whether those values and behaviors aligned in that more granular way, so that technology can help, particularly organizations of 100 employees plus, where, Gemma, I'm sure you can't be in every single office room, every single house at the minute, making sure that culture is felt. So you have to use technology in different ways to do so. But equally, technology should not take over the world, and Dan might disagree with me here in that respect in some ways, but we need to balance that tech with the human element. But I'm going to pause here because I'd like us to fire through these questions, because there's some brilliant questions that have come through. We've got 15 minutes. So Gemma, Dan, between you, I'm probably going to ask one question each. So unless you've got a really strong view on adding an extra comment to that, please just wait for me to bounce between, if I may.
I'll try not to.
Gemma, this one's going to come to you. It's from Donny Wiley. How do you transform and develop a culture from a legacy business, traditional thinking, to a new and emerging organization paradigm with many new staff? I think that kind of lines back to the legal sector overall, and you going from a legal worker to suddenly driving forward culture.
Sure. So thanks for the question. So, well, first of all, is finding out again what those cultures are. What is the culture? What is the feeling? How do your people actually feel? How do your leaders feel? Are your sort of, is the way that you do things align with your values as a business? I think one of the first things that we did when we were looking at this is leadership. And what happens in a law firm, and I suspect lots of other sorts of professional services industries, the leader, the longest person in the job, or the best person at a particular job. So for me, in our industry, what used to happen is the best lawyer would end up being the leader. Or the person who's been there the longest would end up being the leader. And they have no desire to be a leader. No one's asked them if they want to be. So what then happens is, as Dan was just talking about now, particularly with the sort of younger generation, they're not getting that arm around, they're not getting that feedback, because the view is, well, actually, we never got any of this, and we just got it. We were fine. We didn't get it. We were fine. No one asked us how we feel. And of course, what we see now, and again through anything, is everything's instant now. You go on Instagram, put a picture on. If you haven't got 5 likes in 5 seconds, you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? And that's what you find with our people. So they need feedback regularly. They don't want to wait. 6 months for their appraisal or anything like that. And we have to get leaders in the mindset of actually of adopting that and actually wanting to lead. So one of the first things that we did was had a look at our leadership, rallied them around, spoke to them about this is how we're going to do things. And then also in terms of new people, it's easier. It's much easier when you're transforming, I think, when you're getting new people in because they're not used to the old way. So, for example, we were Jackson, Cantor, and Lees. New people came into Jackson, Lees, and they just knew how it was then. So it was much more difficult actually to get people to align with in terms of culture when it was the two businesses that came together before. It's actually much easier when this is the way we do things now. It's much easier to have buy-in from people. But yeah, I think it is exploring that actually, what do you stand for? Because actually what let's take for example, conveyancing department. If you ask everybody in that team, what do you do? What is it you do? Well, we buy and sell houses, we do this, we do lots of admin. No, what do you do? And when you actually drill down into what's your why, what do you do? It turns into, we turn your dream into a home. And actually everyone feels that. So it's actually just getting a lot of people that I've found in our business, deep down, the values were quite similar. They come into the area of work because they love, they've got a certain need to help people. It's just about having them talk about it in a different way. And actually, when you do listen to people, find out what their motivations are and sort of guide them along in that way on the journey, it makes it much, much easier. But once again, it completely goes back to listening. When we brought the two cultures together of the two firms, we used the likes of Stribe to ask questions, to have people be comfortable in saying, this is how it really is. And it's only when you know how it really is that you can make any sort of changes. So I hope that sort of answers. But again, I think just to summarise, listening again, and I think using technology for that is absolutely brilliant, as well as the sort of human element of conversation. But then also, leadership and having a look at who is your leadership team. Are they people who want to lead? Are they a deliberate leader? Have they got a desire and a genuine interest in people?
I think that's the big one, isn't it? Especially in law firms. Sorry to interrupt. Proving actually that I'm not emotionally intelligent at all, and I did law. There you go, proving out I'm an emotionally intelligent man. But that's one of the big things, and we do quite a bit of work with lawyers. Is that you're right. They go to the top and they get to the top, and actually they did. When you really ask them candidly, they didn't really ever want to lead it anyway. They were kind of last man at the table, so to speak, and then they have a certain almost embittered view about the fact that they. Anyway, don't get me started on law firms and law culture. But it's fascinating. But you've got to ask them those questions, and I think that's why I get so excited by people using your flock, because it gets you to drill down naturally. Because they ask, we do a survey where it does something completely different, so they don't know they're answering a certain deeper point, if that makes sense. If you go to a lawyer who's very busy and go, oh, by the way, give me your values. Okay, that's going to be an interesting 2-minute conversation. And so it can take a long time to get down to that bit, but you're absolutely right. The lower bit of the values, like things like teamwork and other things, they're all shared. And if you can grab hold of those bits and say, actually, this is why we are who we are, and this is why maybe, John's not doing so well as a partner, because actually we never asked John these questions before we recruited him as a partner. By the way, we should have, because we would have saved £100,000. So if you've done the Your Flock test beforehand, not mentioning any names, but there are 3 in Manchester that didn't do that, and then didn't listen to it, and then still hired the partner, and then the partner leaves, and it costs a fortune and almost breaks businesses. So I get very passionate about it. So I'm totally with you on the fact, keep asking those questions, use technology to do so and get to the bottom. There's always a problem, by the way, with legacy cultures and joining together of people, but actually there isn't, because you ask the right questions, you say, you'll find the commonality. We're all human beings deep down, we're all here for connection. So you find the commonality, you get the right people on the bus, you can form any kind of great business.
Absolutely. And Donnie, just one point to build on both Gemma and Dan, if you're starting that journey and trying to visualize that element of understanding the core and the nucleus of what someone feels like, there's a wonderful gentleman called Simon Sinek, and he uses the why, how, what model. It's the onion of what most organizations do is look at the what, then go into the how, and then go, oh, we do this because, as Gemma was saying, it's about us going in the other way and saying, well, it takes you 3 layers. But imagine if you talk about, supporting someone and their family to be happier again. We do this by the fact that we're lawyers and we know the law to help to overcome that. But the first point is to talk. And when I look at Stribe and Toot in the same way, we give staff a voice. It's because we want to listen to people. We care about what their thoughts are. What we do is we have technology that enables that, but the core of that is to drive that forward. And the same for your flock. So have a look at that model when you're thinking about kind of whatever organization or sector that you're in, just flip around what you do. If you make widgets, then well, what are the widgets for, and why are you doing that, and why is the founder really started that 50 years ago? And if your company's 500 years old, then what was the reason that started? Arup, the employee-owned company, is amazing that after 50 years of working with what they're doing, they still celebrate Arup and the gentleman standing up on the steps in a location in the UK, talking about his why and what he's doing differently. And that is still embedded through Jenny that we've had on the other Stribe sessions. And so Simon Sinek, YouTube, great video that explains it in 3 minutes. I'm going to keep trying to
start with your why, which is great.
Start with your why, absolutely. I've got 9 minutes. I'm going to keep moving through them. I'm doing my best to hold on to the reins here. So Dan, this is a succinct one for you. Do any of you assess job candidate values and personality traits as part of the recruitment process? How is that best done? That's pretty much what you can do to support, if I'm right in saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to say thank you very much, whoever did that. Hopefully they're not a plant, so to speak. Yeah, that's exactly what your flock does. That's kind of the point of it. So when you do the survey, and it takes 5 minutes, you do it for candidates as well. So what we have as recruitment partners, but you don't need to have a recruitment partner to do this. You could ask 5 candidates and they could all be there with their skills and aptitude and all these other things, all kind of level pegging. And then you do the flock test or other personality tests. I'd be always worried about doing personality tests because Myers-Briggs and other things you can fudge quite quick. I mean, not in a bad way, and sometimes people just, they kind of know what you want to hear. So they kind of say that too. So you've got to be a bit careful. But yeah, we do ENTP, we do the Myers-Briggs stuff. We also do Belvin roles. We do 3 or 4 different personality type tests before they do your flock test. And then they'll do your flock test and that will show you the values and whether they're a good culture fit. And you really want to get, also to say values fit, you really want to get someone who's a good values fit. Because that will make the difference. That will mean that they'll stay for longer. That will mean they'll be more productive, and it's really important. And that's what your flock does. That's why I invested in it, because I believe that's the future of all recruitment. It also gives you a chance to recruit more diversely and in a more inclusive way. Because if you're using other mechanisms to do so, especially how you start to recruit people or find the people as well, can be a big barrier and a big blocker to people from underrepresented groups, because of course they're underrepresented because the system at the moment kind of points against them. If you're still looking through CVs and going, oh, I don't like the look of that name, then stop yourself. But of course you won't realize you're doing it, because this is the problem. This is why actually people should use technology, but not for everything. I'm just going to do a quick one on this. With AI, we've got to be careful. The future of work will be around AI, and we've got to be careful because unfortunately at the moment artificial intelligence, because of the data sets it's using, is just amplifying confirmation bias and basic systematic problems in the industry of recruitment. Yeah. So, if you think that you're not too biased, well, actually an AI system can be 20 times biased, 20 times more quickly. So we can't take human beings out of this entirely, because we can't give it just to computers.
Brilliant, thank you, Dan. And I absolutely advocate your flock. We tried it out a couple of times at different stages when we've been looking at kind of measuring our teams, and it's been brilliant for me to be able to see quite recently that actually on all the different values and behaviors, we've got great talent in each area, but I didn't quite realize how diverse some of those skill sets are, which is now going to allow me to use our own solution then, as Gemma's doing with Stribe, to check back and then measure that everyone's still feeling that same way. And then I'll be doing that again and working with the team in between. So absolutely, for anybody that's thinking about, a quick test to see where your culture sits, it's a brilliant tool that's in place. Jill Cook has given us a couple of great questions. Gemma, one to you from a practical point of view, please. How do you encourage and train managers to trust their people? That is a big question.
That is a huge, with 4 minutes to go, that is a huge question.
That's a question I could talk about for hours. I think one of the best ways to show managers, to train them how to trust their people, is to show them what happens when you don't. We see lots of occasions when we have seriously good talent leave a business because they're not being able to flourish and not being able to show what they can do, because you've had a manager who's sort of controls them too much. I think particularly in the remote world we find ourselves in now, which for some of us is quite new, I think there were some initial challenges with people saying, I need to make sure that some people have heard some stories where the manager would check they're online at 9 o'clock and they would check that they're still there at 5:05. And if they weren't the next day, that just absolutely breeds a really awful culture. It's just not, it's about actually, and I suppose I'm going to go into the next question there, sorry, about outcomes. What do you want your people to do? Are they doing it? Brilliant. Does it matter at what time they're doing it? Absolutely not. Unless it's about serving a client, unless it's, your client saying I'm going to meet you at 10 o'clock and the person that in your team is still in bed at 10 o'clock, that's problematic. But actually, what is it? What is it that you want someone to do? What is it that you want them to do for your clients or for their colleagues? What is that? When that happens, it is really irrelevant. And I think that element of trust, again, and I'll talk again, which I won't now, psychological safety. People need to know that you trust them, that you've got their back, and that's how you get the best performance from them. I'm someone who, like Dan, I like autonomy. I don't particularly like being closely managed. But I know for a fact that it doesn't matter when I do it, because I know that my boss has got my back. I know that she trusts me implicitly, and that has made me able to fly really in what I've been doing. And I think with people, I think what we do with our leaders is show them what happens when they don't trust their people. And then what we use for that type of training session is data that we've had. So we will use the things that we've had from Stribe, the data that we've got, and say, look, this is how your people feel. This is why they're not performing, because you're stifling them. You're not trusting them. But actually, this is a team over here who have said that they feel trusted, and look how they're being productive. So again, we use comparison quite a bit, but again, inform that with lots of data.
Gemma, that goes back to the first question that was asked and some personal experience again, and it helps to shift that culture. Particularly the world, if you've got a business that's been operating in that old-fashioned way, like I used to drive my business, which was, you're a customer support, you're on that desk, you wait for the phone, that was kind of what was certain sectors looked after. It's about changing that mindset to say, what are the key principles of that role that need to be attained to and looked after, the customer first model. Then it's saying, well, in order to manage this, and the only way to manage this, to trust your team, is to then set very clear outcomes. And that then prevents you even mentioning the word presenteeism, Jill. So, my team know that we have 3 key milestones: financial, customer, and development, between now and March. And we bang the drum on all 3, but how we get there, there's complete autonomy. I haven't got the headspace or the time to work out how we get to any of those different directions. I've got my own job to deliver on, and I'll hold myself accountable, and I need the team to hold accountable. So if you're thinking about changing from an old culture to a new culture, that Jill's point of actually moving to an outcomes based kind of organization and being really clear on 4 or 5 metrics, trusting your people and the talent you've hired to get there is key, and making sure that they feel happy, safe, and able to do so is really important. And back to the point that Dan was saying around, if you hire the right people and line it up in the first place, you shouldn't really get to these problems. It's normally legacy issues where you brought on your first set of staff or 4 or 5 people into different teams because you think you know them rather than knowing them. So all of this is really, really intertwined.
The outcome-based thing is massively key, and the objective-based thing is massively key. And just because I think it's a particular question that person's asking, if they'd like to email me, we've got a couple of things that I can ping over to them. That might be fundamental, that might be rudimentary, but I'll ping them over to them. There are team activities they can do to strengthen that core value, because we do have a core value around being results focused and objective focused. So we can ping across some learnings there that we've got from our side, from our learning development coaches. But that's kind of the other reason why you do this, is because what you want to make sure is when you're teaching around being objective focused and outcome and trusting, you actually want more than one activity. You don't just want to do a day on it and then leave it because people forget it. You want to do a weekly activity and another reminder, because changing someone's culture is very hard to do. This is why recruiting for values fit is so important, because changing someone's hard. It's also massively egotistical and presumptuous, because why should they change? Maybe they, if they are autonomous and they like autonomy, but your organization doesn't need that, needs more teamwork, you must probably hired the wrong person at that moment in their lives. That's just life. That's okay. But you then saying to them, actually, no, you need to change for your job. I personally have an issue with that, because maybe they shouldn't. You just got the wrong person. And also, by the way, we all know that psychologically, people don't tend to move as much as you think they do. People don't change as much as people want them to. They just want them. It's just egotistical. You want them to change. Well, actually, maybe it's a deeper issue. You can't make people change, I'm afraid. You can't make them change. You can just help facilitate a change that they want, is what I'm trying to get to.
Really clear, Dan. And Liz is, been very, very complimentary of all of us today, particularly Dan talking about happiness and it does make profits and profitability. And she boils it down beautifully to, that's quite a complicated subject we're talking about, but ultimately it's, how do we make our people happy? And the why is because it will help your company to grow and thrive. So on that note, I don't think we can say it any better ourselves. Culture is the kind of umbrella, the glue, the feeling that the organization is aligned. And that if you feel that it's working in the right way, it's important that you sense check that to understand why it's working in the right way, to keep doing more of what you're doing going forwards. And if it's falling away and if it feels like it's bad, then let's ask our staff what's happening at that moment in time, in that real time. Let's take a step back and work with our managers and our leaders to really filter that through and open up and build psychological safety to talk about that. And then if it's still not right, let's look back at kind of the hiring process, what we've hired, our values and benefits, to just realign where we are as an organization. Because the messages from Gemma and Dan that are both coming through of, you know, you've got a circle and you need to try and make everything fit into that circle in both ways, as well as the kind of square doesn't work. And it's okay if certain things don't work. That's where change is important. But outcomes, measurements and lining it up is there.
So I'll do a quick one as well, if that's okay. Only because I want to, Mikkel's sort of going to shoot me for saying this. Because whoever's on the call today, because I feel so passionately about it, get in contact with Michael and Stribe. We will get you 10 free flock profiles to do, not 1 or 2. We'll get you 10. If you need 20 because your leadership is bigger, that's totally cool. Just get back to us, but don't come back and say, oh, we need 100, because that's naughty. There's not a leadership team that's 100, so I know that naughty trick, which is fine. But yeah, we will, as a thank you, because we're all about collaboration here at Your Flock, and because we're a great believer in what you guys are doing as well with Tutu and Stribe, we will do that offer, even though I think the nice thing about it, I know I've got the autonomy to make that offer because it's part of our values. So I'm going to say it. Hey, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 10 free profiles for anyone who'd like them, especially Gemma. I'd love to work with you guys as well. So that obviously goes to you as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Dan. Well, it's recorded, so on that note, you're held to that, and I'm sure the marketing team will make sure that they share that with everybody afterwards. But I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to wrap up, if I may. And first of all, Gemma, thank you so much for your time and your insights. And I'm sure you wouldn't mind if anyone has any key questions to come through us, and we'll filter them back to you.
Yep, sure.
Brilliant. And Dan, thank you as always for your enthusiasm and your inputs and insights. I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed it. I certainly haven't. And thank you for your generosity at the end of the webinar as well.
That's okay. Go www.yourflock.co.uk, have a look as well. No problems.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Gemma.
For me, this comes down and boils down into 3 L's in terms of how can you get your culture right. Leadership, that's across the board. Everybody's a leader. So empowering people and understanding that right from the top that culture is important. Listening at every level is equally important. How you listen and what you listen to is up to yourselves, but it's aligning back to your outcomes. And looking to use technology to support and aid what you do is really, really important. I started the session absolutely believing in culture, and speaking to both Gemma and Dan, I'm infused and want to do more in my own organization. But the thing to note here is start simply, understand what your culture is today and get the mechanisms in place to work that out. Then pause, then think, and then truly align the future and the culture up with your next 1, 3, and 5 years of what you're wanting to do, but make sure you measure that every single day. Thank you very much indeed for listening. It's 30 seconds to the hour. Go for your pee, go for your coffee. Make sure that your culture is a happy one ongoing. And again, Gemma, Dan, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to speaking soon.
Michael, that was brilliant. Thanks to you, mate. Awesome.
Thanks, team. Bye.